Everyone, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Alicia. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm joining you from the native lands of the Ktunaxa, Spokane, and Shuswap tribes, now known as Spokane, Washington. Feel free to let me know how you're doing in the chat. You could share where you're practicing from. And this will be a gentle mat class with props, a very grounding type class. We won't be coming up above knees down. So I have 2 blocks and a strap, a bolster, 2 blankets, and I also have a chair handy in case I want to use it as a prop or for help getting up and down from the floor at the beginning and end of practice. And I thought we could start this one lying down. So feel free to add into the chat if there's anything specific that you would like to cover during the class today. And let's take one of our blankets folded up as a pillow for under the head. Take your time coming onto your back. If you haven't practiced with me before, I like to remind you this is completely your practice. So think of anything that I'm going to offer as invitations. And then tune into your own bodily wisdom, your own inner teacher, and let those be your primary guides for our time together. So option 2, keep the knees bent and the feet flat on the floor, maybe taking the feet about as wide as the mat. Let's press down into the feet, lift the hips just enough that you can smooth the flesh of the bum towards the heels, and then lower back down. That might add some more length to the low back. And you can do a similar process with the head, lifting the head just a bit, tucking the chin with the fingertips to the back of the head, and then lowering the head back down, getting some length in the back of the neck. And in a moment, I'm going to invite the bell that will drop us into the centering portion of our practice. Then we'll transition to some gentle mat-based movements using our props for support. And we'll make our way back to a comfortable lying down position for some breath work and some integration and relaxation time. You're also welcome to let your knees fall in towards each other, so that might be less effort to hold the knees up. You can leave the eyes open with a softened gaze, or you might choose to close the eyes down completely. And I'll invite the bell to drop us in. And as everyone's settling into their own space, let's take a moment to acknowledge that the tradition of yoga originated thousands of years ago in ancient India. And then start to feel into the back body. Noticing all the places that you're in contact with the floor or any props. And notice that firmness beneath you. Feeling sensations beneath the soles of the feet. The back of the hips. Lower back. Middle back. Upper back. Backs of the shoulders. Backs of the arms. Back of the neck and head. And then you might position your arms so the backs of the arms are against the floor, the backs of the upper arms are against the floor. And you can bend at the elbows and let the fingertips rest on your belly or chest, whatever's most comfortable to reach, so that you can still keep your arms soft, but so you can start to tune into the natural rhythm and movement of your breath. So now starting to notice the sides and the front of the body. And you don't need to try to change your breath in any sort of way. See if you can allow it to come and go at its own pace. And then start to tune into the sensations in your fingertips. Noticing the ebb and flow of the breath. Notice how the inhale tends to be a feeling of expansion, and maybe even a lengthening of the spine against the floor. And the exhale tends to be more of a softening and a settling. And see if you can come at this from more of a witness or an observer standpoint. Imagine you're letting go of any control. And you're simply settling back, observing whatever's true for you in this moment. Also trying to let some of the judgment fall away. There's no right or wrong here. And as you're quieting the mind and the body, Are there any other thoughts or emotions that are arising for you? And anything you're noticing here, this is also welcome. What would it be like if you accept whatever's arising rather than trying to push it away? And I'm going to bring in a reading from Kelly Nicole Palmer's book, Manifest. And the theme of this one is I notice. I notice the stories I am telling myself. I notice the ways I talk myself out of my joy. I notice the patterns and practices that create chaos, uphold oppression, and dismember connection. I notice when I allow fear to control me instead of letting love be a guide in my life. I notice it all as the first step to releasing it all. So maybe we could let this practice time be a time of noticing. We've already started that process. We'll continue to bring it in throughout our time together. Whenever you're ready, you can open the eyes if they were closed or lift the gaze. And take a moment to reorient visually to your space. You could also let your head fall side to side as you're doing this. Really taking your time and noticing what pace feels natural. And you don't have to think about any of these things too much. Try to feel into what seems right for you. Maybe what seems right for you is leaving your head to one side a little bit longer than the other. So following your own intuition. And starting that conversation with your body. What does it need in this moment? And it's up to you if you'd like to keep the head going side to side. But option to bring in the arms now, grasping opposite elbows with the hands and letting the arms start to go side to side. Working our way down the spine. So your head could be following the direction of your arms if it's moving. Or you could play with going opposite of the arms and noticing how that feels. How do the sensations change? You could keep the arms mostly straight above you, or you could start to just barely peel the shoulder blade off the floor as you go side to side. Softening the jaw and tongue. the lips and the inside of the mouth. And option to keep the head and or arms moving or let them go. And then bring in the knees, letting the knees go side to side. So same thing here, if you are moving the head and the arms, they could be tracking in the same direction as the knees, or you could play with staggering them and going opposite. Let's start to slow that down. Bring it on back through center. Let's have our strap handy. And let's take it, I have a long strap. Mine's a 10-foot strap, so I'm going to fold it in half. So it'll depend on the length of your strap, what you like. Mine's all wound up here. But let's plant the left foot and then bring the right ankle to cross up over the left knee. You can just lay your strap across your belly for now. We'll use it in a moment. And maybe you let the knees go side to side with that right ankle crossed over the left knee. Just kind of exploring different movements here. Let's roll that right ankle in a circle one direction and the other direction. And point and flex the right foot, wiggling the toes. And then let's take the strap, start to pull the knees towards the chest and take that strap. It can either be around the front of the left shin. You could thread the strap through the hole between the legs and take the strap around the right thigh, whatever feels best to help hold the legs in towards the torso. And now let's roll the left ankle one direction and other direction. Point and flex. Wiggle the toes. And you can also rock a little side to side in this position. And feel free to get creative. You could also make circles with the legs. If you do that, reverse and also go the opposite direction. Just kind of rocking and rolling, exploring what this feels like, noticing what seems interesting to you. And then let's lower that left foot back down. Let's open up the strap and take it around the ball of the right foot, lengthening up through the right leg. At least keeping a soft micro bend in that right knee. And don't worry if your leg is not straight. Just lengthen up and out through the heel, whatever way feels best. You might rock that foot a little side to side, noticing how that changes the sensations in the back of the leg. And then let's take both sides of the strap into the right hand and open the right leg out towards the right any amount. Let's take the left hand to the left hip, reminding the left hip to stay grounded. Make sure the breath is still flowing and you're not holding the breath. Sometimes we'll hold the breath or clench the jaw if we're trying too hard, maybe going too far. Let's bring that right leg back up through center, switch the strap to the left hand, and then let the right leg cross the midline towards the left any amount. Right hand could be on the right hip, reminding the right hip to stay grounded. Let's bring the leg back through center. Split the strap one side into each hand. Let's press up through the right heel and then lower the right heel slowly towards the ground, pressing out through the heel the entire time, even a little bit after you touch down. And let's take 3 full breaths here. Gentle pressure out through the heel. After your third exhale, let's bring the right foot back in so you can release the strap. We'll root down through the right foot. This time, you can fold your strap in half again if you choose. And then let's cross the left ankle over the right thigh. And we can roll the left ankle one direction and the other direction. Point and flex. Wiggling the toes. And we can also let the knees and the legs fall side to side. And what differences, if any, are you noticing from side to side? You might notice one hip being tighter than the other. There could be a lot of different things you could notice here. But don't worry if you don't notice differences. It takes some practice to start to tune into the differences, so it's okay if you don't notice them. Just stay open to being curious. Stay open to being kind of an explorer and an experimenter. And then let's hug the knees towards the chest using the strap to hold them in place in whatever way feels best for you. And maybe you continue the rocking here too, if that felt good. Now we can roll the right ankle one direction and other direction. Pointing and flexing. Wiggling the toes. And then let's start to explore here. You always have the option to make some circles. If you are making the circles, go both directions. And give this side whatever it feels like it needs. It might need something different than the first side. Let's lower back down. And this time we'll take the strap around the ball of the left foot, extending the left leg. Explore that left ankle and foot in whatever way seems interesting. And then let's take both sides of the strap into the left hand and let the left leg open out towards the left any amount. Right hand to the right hip, keeping that left or right hip grounded. Keeping the breath moving. Softening the jaw and tongue. Inside of the mouth and the lips. And then bringing the left leg back through center, switching both sides of the strap into the right hand, and letting the left leg cross the midline towards the right any amount. Left hand to the left hip to keep the left hip grounded. Coming back through center, splitting the strap one side in each hand, pressing up through the left heel, slowly lowering the left heel towards the floor, pressing out through the heel, even after it touches down. And then let's take 3 full breaths on this side. Let's release the strap. You can set it off to the side. You can bring both feet to the floor again. Let's take a pause here, check in, and notice how you're feeling. As you're checking in, you can feel into the back body again. feeling that support of the floor beneath you. Noticing the qualities of your breath. And noticing any shifts or not in the thoughts and emotions that are coming up for you. Taking your own time, let's make our way onto one side. To do this often, I like to press down through the feet and then shift my hips sideways away from the direction that I'm going to turn to roll onto one side. And then you can use your arms to press yourself up to a comfortable seat. Let's go ahead and grab our bolster and our blocks. So have your bolster, we'll be sitting up on the bolster. You can also sit up on a couple of blankets if you prefer. So have your blocks and your strap handy too. And also have your blankets nearby. I'll show you how you can use your blankets if you choose to. So if you're sitting cross-legged, first of all, however you're sitting, let's take the skin out and back from each hip with your hand so you can feel your sitting bones more fully on the support. So if you choose to sit cross-legged, if you have a hard floor, sometimes I like to take one of my blankets and have it underneath my ankles. And if you are sitting up on a bolster, you might try coming towards the front of your bolster so that your knees naturally are lower than your hips and you're kind of sitting on the edge of the support. If sitting cross-legged isn't comfortable for you, you could still stay up on your bolster. But if you're doing that and you're taking your legs long, you might need a blanket or two. You can roll a little cylinder and you can take that under the backs of your knees so that your knees aren't hanging out unsupported. You could also, if this is still uncomfortable, maybe it's too much for your back, you could always take yourself to a wall so that you can use the back against the wall for some added support. But the bottom line here is setting yourself up in a position where you feel supported, you feel strong and comfortable. So find whatever your comfortable seat is going to look like. And let's take a few circles with the torso. Hands can be on the thighs, if that's comfortable. And we can also start to link up the movement to the breath. You could try inhaling as you're coming back, and then exhaling as you're coming forward. Letting your breath guide you. And if linking the two together, the movement and the breath, doesn't feel right for you, just let that go and find what feels best. Next time you come through center, let's reverse and go the opposite direction. And what differences, if any, do you notice from one way as compared to the other? And once you're feeling even both directions, let's all meet back at center. So if you are sitting cross-legged, you might choose to change the direction of the cross of your legs. And let's bring the hands together in front of us, forming a scoop, like a bowl. And with the next inhale, let's scoop the hands up. And as the hands come up towards the top, you can also separate the hands as you get higher if that feels better for your shoulders. Let's do the backs of the hands together. So flip the hands so the backs are together, reach up through the fingertips, and on the exhale, out and down and around. Let's go a few more times, scooping up. If it feels better for your shoulders and arms, you could scoop more out front and not bring it up so high. And do more of like a breaststroke type arms. Make it your own. Inhaling as you're scooping up. Exhaling as you're reaching out and down and around. Finding your own pace. Finding your own expression of the movement. Let's do one more. Let's take another pause here. Notice how you're feeling. Let the shoulders settle back down. And notice your new relationship with the ground and a change in your base. Before it was the back body. Now we're more upright. So you might think of the bum and the legs, the sides of the, maybe the backs of the legs, depending on how you're sitting. Notice where your base is now and where you're in contact with the floor and any props. And what are you noticing about the breath now? And we'll go ahead and shift our base again. Let's make our way to hands and knees. I'm also going to give an option for forearms and knees if you'd prefer. So take at least one of your blankets for padding under the knees. If you'd like extra padding, have 2 blankets. Have your blocks along with you and have your bolster handy. I'll show you a couple different options. So we'll want to have the knees roughly under the hips. I'm going to show the hands down option first. And I like to use my blocks for this as well. It just gives me some more space through the middle of my body, brings me up a bit from the floor. And I have cork blocks, so the medium height works for me. If your blocks are feeling kind of wobbly, unstable, take your block, dial it down one more level to the low height. And then your wrists will be roughly under your shoulders. So this is one option. If you prefer not to put the pressure on the wrists, you can take your arms to the forearms to the blocks. And in this case, your elbows will be roughly under your shoulders. And then your wrists are hanging off the edge. And you can do that same thing with your bolster instead of the blocks if you'd like something a little softer. So I think I'm going to demo from right here today. This feels nice for me. So find whatever position's going to feel best for you. You can always change it up. But let's start with rocking forward and back. So sending the hips towards the heels as you come back. And then coming a little forward. And we can link up the movement with the breath here too. Let's try exhaling as we send the hips back and inhaling as we come forward. If your belly's feeling too compressed here, take your knees wider. And then taking the knees as wide as you need to make space for the belly. You can also take the hands, smooth the belly towards the center, and then come back down. So we kind of have a long back here. If you're on your bolster, you could even, if there's the space to do so, you could even lower your forehead down to your bolster. Sometimes that pressure on the forehead can be down regulating for the nervous system. So in this particular situation, depending on, I'm going to show a few options depending on where you're at. If you were, when you were rocking, if you were up on hands on your blocks, let's come down to forearms now. So everybody will do forearms if that works for you, wide knees. So either forearms on blocks or forearms on the bolster. I'm going to go back to my bolster real quick. But let's bring the fingertips together and then bend at the elbows and bring the hands towards the back of the head, any amount. Let's inhale as we let the arms lengthen and exhale as we bend the elbows. And then find your own pace here. The version with the bolster might be a little bit more supportive because then you have something in the middle for your forehead to rest on. It's also softer on the elbows. But find what's going to work for you. And if this isn't working for you, find something different that would be supportive. Let's do one more of these. And then come back up. You could stay with your forearms down, or you could come up to hands on blocks, bringing the knees roughly under the hips, wrists, elbows, roughly under the shoulders. And let's do a few cat and cows. So with your inhale, let the belly drop, the chest lift, your gaze can come up slightly if that feels okay for your neck. And then on the exhale, round the back, pressing the belly up, pressing up and out through the shoulder blades, tucking the chin. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest. Exhale, round the back. Find your own pace here. You can let the natural pace of your breath, natural rhythm there, you can let that guide the pace of your movement. Let's do one more of these. Bringing it back through neutral. And then let's take it side to side. So take one ear towards the hip and then back to center. And then other ear towards the hip. So you're making like a C shape with your torso. Now we're getting some movement in the spine laterally. Maybe exhaling as you're making your C shape, and then inhaling back to center. Let's take it once more to each side. And then let's sit the hips back, come up to tall knees. Imagine you're sticking your hands in your back jeans pockets, opening the elbows back, broadening across the collarbones and the chest. Let's take 3 full breaths here, opening the front side of the body. Let's release the hands. Let's turn the palms up. Let the wrists flop a bit with the palms up. Then face the palms in towards each other, still flopping. The wrists and the hands. Palms down. We can also do a little side to side. Let's roll the wrists one direction, other direction. Wiggle the fingers. Let's do a few flicks of the front fingers, different heights. And get creative with this, what feels interesting. You can add a little bit of twisting in or bending towards the side. Let's shake all that out. And let's make our way onto our back again. So I'm going to offer a little bit of a different position here for our Shavasana, but you can take whatever's going to be comfortable. I'm going to take my pillow blanket back there again. But I'm going to use my chair today to add a little bit of extra height under the backs of my legs. So So you could also just lay your legs across your bolster. You could put your bolster under the backs of your knees and legs where it feels comfortable. For me, it's often not comfortable to lay with my legs straight out. Sometimes that kind of tweaks my low back, so maybe it doesn't for you. We're just finding a position here that will be supportive and comfortable for some rest and a little bit of breath work. So even though I'm going to use my chair, I still like to press my feet into the floor, lift my hips, smooth the skin and the flesh of the hips towards the heels to get some length in the low back. And then I'm going to take the backs of my calves to the seat of the chair. And then I also have my extra blanket along with me. Sometimes it's nice to add some weight and a little bit of warmth for your rest time. So take your time getting settled in. You don't have to be laying on your back. You could be laying on your side or your belly. You could be taking your legs up the wall. The options are infinite. If you're new to this, just start by trying something and then adjusting as needed. You can also take the fingertips to the back of the head, lifting the head, little tuck of the chin, lowering the head back down. You can soften the gaze or close the eyes down. And once you get settled, notice again all the places that you're in contact with the floor and your props. Notice your new base and relationship with gravity now. And let's do a few straw breaths to help us get settled in here. To do that, you inhale through the nose, and then on the exhale, you purse the lips together like you're blowing out through a straw. And that helps to slow down the exhale, make the exhale longer and smoother. And oftentimes a longer, slower exhale can be down-regulating for the nervous system. So if you're open to trying this, let's give it a go. Let's inhale through the nose. Lips together like you have a straw there, and then slowly exhaling out through that straw. Taking your time, letting the exhale be slow and smooth and complete. Exhaling all the air out, and then allowing your next inhale to arise on its own. Let's do 3 more of those at your own pace. After your third exhale, whenever it comes, let your breath settle into its own natural rhythm. And you can use each exhale as your cue and your opportunity to let yourself soften into this support beneath you any amount more. Noticing those subtle areas of gripping, or maybe you're tensing but you don't need to be. As you come upon those areas and you're aware of them, you can invite them to soften. Each exhale reminding you of that opportunity to let go. I notice the stories I am telling myself. I notice the ways I talk myself out of my joy. I notice the patterns and practices that create chaos, uphold oppression, and dismember connection. I notice when I allow fear to control me instead of love being a guide in my life. I notice it all as the first step to releasing it all. Taking your own time, let's invite some small movements back into the body. You might start out at the fingers and toes, wrists and ankles, and gradually make your way towards whatever larger movements might be nice to wake the body back up. Opening the eyes if they were closed or lifting the gaze. Visually reorienting to your space. Eventually making your way to one side. Taking at least one full breath there. And using your arms to press yourself back up to a comfortable seat. And if you'd like to join me to close out our practice, you can take one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly. May I greet my body with gentleness. May I soften when life invites me to harden. May I listen to my intuition with wisdom and trust it with ease. And may I appreciate my body a little more in this moment, just as it is. And then we can bring the hands together in front of the heart. Let's take one breath together. We'll inhale and exhale. Thank you all so much for choosing to share your time and your practice with me today.